Hey, you're keeping company with Connor, and you're listening to another Town Square Spotlight. We got a great guest for you guys today. I'm really excited about this because actually we knew each other a long time ago. We went to school, like elementary school, a couple of grades apart, and now here we are kind of both in the industry. He's touring around and all over the place while I'm just sitting here behind a mic all the time. But it's so great to be able to catch up with this guy. I wish I was recording every moment before this because you would be eating this up as well. With us today, we have drummer and drum tech Jesse Walsh. Right now, he's on tour with Billboard Hot 100 charting rock band and former WRRV Sessions headliners, Young the Giant. He's been with so many bands. He's been all over the planet. He's doing so much when it comes to music, and it's so great to have him in the studio today. By the way, no relation on Walsh. We're just friends. But Jesse, thanks so much for coming in. How are you, man?
Thanks for having me. I'm great. I'm, like I was saying before, enjoying having some time home and getting to relax.
I'm sure.
Finally have some time where I'm not traveling around and putting on shows.
I'm sure because as you were saying off the mic, you've been just running around, constantly doing stuff, and I think that's great though. First of all, I just gotta say, shout out to St. Peter's, rest in peace. That's where we first knew each other. You were a couple years older than me, and I just gotta ask before we get into what you're doing now. I was very young age, I knew I wanted to get into music and entertainment. And so many of the teachers at St. Peter's or friends' families or whatnot, I was like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, you're such a bright kid. Do you really want to do that? And I was like, absolutely. What was it like for you? Did you get like that same reaction as well?
I did on occasion, but I think for me and my family, I was kind of... So to start, my grandfather was a drummer and a professional drummer, gave drum lessons, played around the area for his almost entire adult life. So from the get-go, I was predetermined to be a drummer. There was no way around it. But my family kind of already knew that was, you could have that sort of career. Yeah. And for my grandfather, it was locally. And so when I started showing an interest from a very young age, and when I started playing in bands and it became apparent music was something I wanted to do, it was more of like a, yes, you can, but maybe you also try and do some, finish high school, finish college. There was never really like a, no, you can't do this. Yeah. And I lucked out. I had a lot of teachers, and I mean, I'm sure you could ask any of my grade school teachers. I was constantly tapping on the desk or using pens as drumsticks and annoying the class. But for the most part, everybody was pretty receptive to it. And like I said, because my family on my mom's side had all experienced it, it was kind of a like, yeah, okay. I think it was, knowing how tough the music industry can be and how competitive it is and really how hard you have to work at it was really the biggest hurdle.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure. No, and it's great that you were able to have the family support. I didn't know that about your grandfather, so that's really cool to be able to have that. I, too, my family, super supportive. It was really everybody around that's kind of like, are you sure? Everybody else is concerned. But it's interesting because I find that people place their own concerns and worries onto you while you're just like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to do this. And you can. And look, you have been. As you said off the mic, this has been your career for 10 plus years. And that is really impressive. And I want to talk about the reason that, helped get you in here today, working with Young the Giant, not just working with them and being the drum tech, you got to perform with them. I've seen so many videos of you on stage, so many photos. People are reaching out to you and just saying, oh my God, this is cool. So I just got to ask about that. Like, what was that like? How'd you feel, man? What was that experience?
Well, it was a bit of a whirlwind. It was not really something that was pre-planned. Our drummer had been feeling a bit under the weather. And obviously when you're on tour, it's really tough to be sick on tour. So you kind of just try to power through, it wasn't COVID or anything. And so he came out, we did sound check, I talked to him. He was like, oh, I'm still feeling pretty rough. Do sound check. And oddly enough, very rarely will I leave the venue, like to go get dinner or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But we were in Albuquerque. One of my best friends, who I played music with for years, also went to St. Peter's.
Who was it?
Angelo Estrada.
Oh my God!
So
Blast from the past.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that name in forever.
So he now lives in Albuquerque. So he was coming to the show. My best friend that I've played music with was also in the same band. Was visiting because we knew I was going to be down there.
Mm-hmm.
Pick me up. We go get dinner, and I get a call from my tour manager going, "Hey, you might need to play the show tonight. Just be ready." He's like, "Tell us all the songs you think you can play, and we'll let you know." So I'm sitting, we're eating dinner. All of a sudden, it's like anxiety spikes. I'm just like, okay. So I sit, I look at the set list, send some songs. And of course, my friends are like, bro, you got to play. I'm like, it's not up to me. But odd enough that you guys are here anyway, 1 out of 45 shows all summer.
Exactly.
So we head back to the venue. I'm still waiting to hear. We get stuck in traffic getting back in.
Oh, no.
So I end up having to get out of the car and run back because the artist before Young the Giant is about to go on. So I'm like, so even if I don't play, I have to get back. I have to do all my normal things that I do for a live show. And as I'm running back, tour manager calls me, "You're playing." So I'm freaking out. I'm running back.
This is a movie scene right here.
It was just insane. So we get backstage. I have to rearrange the drum kit a little bit. I have to get all of our other equipment online and getting things ready to go. And had to do a changeover like I always do, but also had to fit in like, I couldn't wear black t-shirt, black shorts, and a Yankee hat. So I had to go and try on some other shirts that the band had, and the band wanted to,
hilarious.
check in with me and see how I was feeling. But it was such a short amount of time. I didn't really feel nervous. Because it was about an hour and a half from when I initially heard to when the band would have played.
Wow.
So it was kind of just you don't have time to be nervous. And I knew I didn't have time to practice anything. The one thing I had going for me was one of the days of rehearsal, I had played drums because Fran, our drummer, wasn't at rehearsals yet.
Okay.
But the rest of the guys wanted to work on their monitor mixes, start to get comfortable with things. So I played for an hour or two. So I played a bunch of songs. So I had known that I had been able to do that. I've played with in-ear monitors before. I played with a click track, which is all things the band does. And it was just kind of like, all right, here we go. And start the set. And it was pretty surreal. I'm not very good at stopping and taking in moments. I definitely had I definitely was conscious enough to do that a few times and go and just kind of have that wow, this is really happening.
Yeah.
And I think the set went pretty well. I mean, I can nitpick my performance, but
always as a musician. But the videos are amazing, dude. From what I've seen, you were killing it.
Well, thank you. It felt pretty good at the time, and I've looked back on the videos. I'm like, all right, I think I did. All things considered, I think it went off pretty well. So
no musician will ever say it was oh yeah, no, I'm happy with that.
Well, I know. I joke with my friends about I've always been very micromanagey about my performances, even when it was a show at the Loft or
R.I.P. the Loft.
Somebody's basement. Yeah. I was always finishing a show and going, I did this, and everybody's like, what are you talking about? So
yep.
I tried to
non-musicians will never hear that. It's if it's your friends or family coming into a show, it's be like, I screwed up that chord, I got that wrong beat, I was off tempo, oh my God, I came in late, and they're like, huh?
Exactly.
They won't realize, but that's also one of the beauties about being a professional musician. You're just able to play it off so well, and a lot of people won't realize it, except for maybe the people in the band, yourself, but even still, that's so impressive and so cool. So as you said, so many people have been reaching out to you and checking in, and it's probably been a whirlwind of that. But there is so much going on with Young the Giant. You said this has been going on through the summer. You have a little reprieve right now, but you're back on tour with them. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of people who understand it's like you have a touring musician and you get hired on to help out with things. But there's not a lot of people who understand the life of a tech, whether that be a drum tech or guitar tech, keyboard tech, anything like that. I've worked in venues. I've worked with dozens of them. I've worked side by side, had to set up the stage, so I know that life. But a lot of people listening don't know that life. So what is that like being a touring drum tech? And how long have you been doing that again?
Almost 10 years.
Almost 10
9 and a half. Minus 18 months where there was no live music. But it's first off, I love it. It's kind of an interesting job because like you said, most people understand being a live musician. But as a tech, it's kind of, and one of the reasons why I like it is because I can kind of fly under the radar. And
this is probably like so out of your wheelhouse right now, being front and center for a microphone and interview.
I think this is the first time I've ever been like formally interviewed about what I do.
I love it.
And I know there's podcasts that other techs have or techs have gone on, but it's just I've never done one. So this is exciting and a bit scary. But yeah, life of a tech. You basically are coming in early, you're setting up band's gear and all their equipment, getting things ready so that the band can come in if they want a sound check or if they're the type of band that just shows up a little bit later and plays a show. And then you pack it all up, put it on a trailer or a truck and see it the next morning. For a drum tech, obviously I'm taking care of drums, which is great because I love drums. But it's a lot of maintenance, on the road. There's a lot of wear and tear on instruments, and obviously high-end instruments generally don't do so well with the wear and tear that can happen on the road. So for me, it's a lot of, when I open up the cases, set the drums up, if I have to change drum heads, take a couple hours to do that. If I have to tune up the kit, which is really most of what I'm dealing with is making sure everything sounds good. Mm-hmm. And that's not just me, but it's me working with our monitor engineer and our audio engineers, our other techs to troubleshoot, not so much with drums, but with like guitars, tends to be a lot of electronics these days.
Oh my God. You got pedals, the pedal boards, you have the amps, you got
some
all
days,
that. Whether you're plugged in, whether it's wireless, the
and
frequencies.
Some days things just decide they don't want to work. They decide they're going to have a high-pitched whine for no apparent reason, and that's part of why we're there is to work that all out and get everything kind of to like a baseline every day, so that our drummer Fran can come in and sit down and go, everything sounds great, everything's in the right place, awesome, let's play. And then end of the night, make sure nothing has gotten broken or destroyed. Sometimes if you smash your knuckle on a rim, a little bit of cleanup on the drums, they go back in a case, put it on a truck, and then do it all again the next day.
Jeez. And you say that you can do this for months on end throughout the year. There's very little time that you're home based on what we're talking about. You have this very short rest right now. You told me off the mic you got another rest in October, but otherwise the year is booked and you are on the road all over the place. Is there a continent you haven't been on yet? Maybe not Antarctica, but any of the rest of them?
Oddly enough, the only continent I haven't visited is Antarctica.
Yeah.
I've done shows on every continent except for Africa, but I have been to Africa outside of touring. So really the only continent left is Antarctica. So I've joked with my girlfriend about when are we going to get down to Antarctica? And she's like, you got enough money to go to Antarctica? I'm like, well, we'll see. So that's the last place. I haven't really done anything in the Middle East. That's the only other like large area, because
it's a tough area to get into. I've heard from a lot of comedians and musicians saying how difficult it is to book shows out there.
Yeah, and like, I know people do shows in Dubai, and I think Qatar has started to have a lot of stuff happening, but it's just not. It's a tougher market. It's more expensive to get there. It's more expensive to put on shows. So.
One of the easier ways I hear is doing military shows if you're going to do something out there.
Yeah, I know you can do a lot of stuff with like USO, and they bring it. Surprisingly, it seems like they bring out quite a bit of like high level artists and comedians and all that. So I haven't done anything quite like that yet, but it always seemed there's always kind of like the rumor of, oh, well, we might do this military thing, and then usually either it doesn't pan out or we're busy doing something else. So
no, understandable. So as I said, you've been doing this for a long time now. You've been working as drum tech. You've been playing for people. You've been on the road for a long time. Obviously, we said you're with Young the Giant, and big fans of them. We're friends of theirs. I think they've been here for WRRV sessions a few times now. Oh,
nice.
Yeah, so, hey, if you want, tell them to come on back to a hometown show. Yeah. But we would love to have them back on. But are there any other names that some people might recognize of who you've worked with, or just projects and groups you've been proud to work with, if you're allowed to talk about it?
So this year and most of last year too has been a lot of back flipping between a couple artists. So the main one right now is Young the Giant. I've also do a lot of work with a band called Lord Huron. I'll be out with them later this year. I was out with them earlier this year, kind of going back and forth. I worked for a very long time, a band called Against the Current, who was how I got into the industry. They're Dan and Will, their drummer and guitar player, are local, and met them doing battle of bands in high school.
Wow.
And when they started taking off and seemed like they were going to start touring, I kind of tried to nudge my way in and say, hey, you guys need a drum tech? You guys need somebody?
Yep.
So I've worked on and off for them for a very long time. I've done work with an artist called Tate McRae, and a band called Spirit
Tate
Box.
McRae. That took me a second. Really?
Yeah, that was so a couple of people I work with now.
That's such a different genre than what we were talking about before.
It is very different.
Yeah.
I had a amazing time, but it is definitely quite different than working in like rock music.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of similarities, but for example, she's dancers.
Yeah.
Which I had never done a gig that had dancers. So there's just more people involved. There's a dance coordinator. There's 6 to 8 dancers. There's a vocal coach. There's a music director. So, which is, I think, a common thing you find in pop music, where there's a lot of people doing jobs, and whereas with a rock band, it's more of just the band.
Yeah.
And maybe a few other outside people, but the band is kind of driving the ship in terms of, live music and creative direction. So it's kind of just a different side of the same world, where you have different music, different things going on. For me, I was still taking care of musicians, but there was musicians and dancers and all sorts of other stuff happening.
Wow. Yeah. The few performances I've seen, like, let's say on The Late Show, or I think she did SNL too. I could be wrong about that, but I thought she did. I don't typically see a band. So it was like, part of me is like, oh, is she just like doing this to a track or something? But she's got a band, obviously. There's people with her.
Yeah, it's sometimes, and her, sometimes the artist will build it so that they can do performances with just a band, or without a band, or just dancers, or without dancers. So most of the stuff I was doing, we had the band.
Nice.
But it depends. If you go and see massive artists, sometimes the band's off to the side or in a different place. Not a different place, but kind of on a lower level.
Yeah. Kind of like if you go to see a musical these days. Yeah,
very
they're
similar.
always in like other rooms or under the stage or something.
So but for me, when I see these artists, I always want to see the band.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in that aspect of it, and I've always found it adds to any pop artist or any artist in general. If there's a live band and they're amazing, I'm sold.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who the artist is or what the music is like. If I go and see somebody and I go, man, that band was awesome, I'm always going to have that and be like, oh, I really enjoyed that artist live because their band was sick. And not everybody thinks that way, but for me, that's a consideration of when I go see somebody play live. So
yeah, that's pretty neat. Sorry, I cut you off there when you were naming artists, but that one just caught me off guard a little bit based on all the other bands you were working with.
Well, it was kind of a few people I had worked with previously were on the gig and were just like, hey, can you come out and do this? So that's kind of how a lot of the gigs happen, is just
who you know, right?
And they go, hey, I need a tech for 2 weeks and you want to come out wherever. And if I'm free, great. If not, maybe next time. But yeah, those are the main ones. There's a band called Spirit Box I did a little bit of work with.
Friend of mine's a really big fan of them, actually.
Yeah, I mean, they are incredible. And I really only did like 2 weeks with them. But they put on such a great show and they sound amazing live. And they're just, I'm so happy to see that trajectory, because I still have a bunch of friends that work with them.
My friend's going to freak out. Like, I'm going to tell her about this, and she'll be like,
and so to see them, continue to have that trajectory is awesome.
That's amazing. And talking about trajectory and the kind of music that we're building, you got music that you're working on as well. And we were saying right before we got on the mic how eerily coincidental that this all happened, because you have your own music project going on and you guys are releasing stuff real soon. Is that right?
Yeah. So I have a new band. We're called Different People. And we, in a few days, are going to release our first song and music video. And then we have a short EP that is going to come out in August. So we were in the studio in June at Nada Studios out across the river, which was a great time. We just shot a music video. We're kind of doing all the we got to figure out artwork. We got to figure out all the promotion stuff, which I haven't done in a really long time because I haven't been playing in a band. So it's been a nice kind of return to all the things I used to do.
Return to form, right? In
the band I was in for 10 years in high school and college. And but yeah, it's really exciting. Our singer is my best friend. We've been best friends for 15 years since he walked into the garage we were practicing in, and he ended up becoming the singer of our band. And then our guitar player, John, I met last summer. Our singer, Nick, has been friends with him. And then we now finally have a bass player. So our friend Austin, who we've also known for 10 years and I did a little bit of touring with, is now playing bass. So it's kind of a fun... We just wanted to write songs that we believed in and we could release and feel good about, and that's kind of all it's been. And we try to not put any pressure on ourselves and try to keep it very just as a cathartic way for all of us, an outlet for all of us to create and write music and really just have a good time. So we're really, really excited. Like you had mentioned, all this stuff has been happening oddly timed, because I was like, oh, you asked me to come in for the interview. I was like, oh, well, this is great. I have a song coming out in a few days.
There you go. Actually, by the time this airs, the song will be out.
Yeah, because today's Tuesday, and it'll come out on Friday.
And this is airing on Sunday.
So there we go. So brilliant. Yeah, it's funny how these things work out sometimes.
It's really good sometimes how that all plays out. So what can you tell us about the release? What kind of vibe, what kind of genre? Is it similar to some of the musicians you worked with before? Is it straying away from it? What can people expect from this?
Well, it's kind of a sum of all the music we all really love, which a lot of it is that early 2000s pop punk and emo and post-hardcore, and kind of us taking that and we have so many good memories of that time. It was when I first started getting into any sort of rock music. It was starting to write our first songs, start our first bands. So I think for us it's kind of a nice, we're looking back on it and going, man, why don't we just write music that reminds us of that, which I think is how a lot of artists create and come up with their music. So yeah, the first song is called In Your Head. It comes out on Friday, and then the other 2 songs will come out in August.
Nice. And when does the music video come out? Is that one for In Your Head?
Yeah, the music video is planned to come out on Friday with song as well. Yeah, we shot it last week. We shot it at a studio in Poughkeepsie. Like I said before.
Good Time Studio?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep. So
good people over there.
Yeah, no, it was great. We had a great time. It's like I mentioned before, it's a bit weird, but also fulfilling to come back to all these things we used to do. I haven't shot a music video in 10 years. I haven't recorded in a studio in almost 10 years. So all these things that I realized that I was missing from being in a band was like, oh man, it's great to do this again and have this experience. So
so used to the road that you weren't all used to this anymore.
So, we eventually would like to play some shows. It depends on everybody's schedules because we're all adults and are relatively busy, but hopefully now that we have a bass player, we can get some shows going.
That would be awesome. So where can people find this new release, In Your Head, came out Friday, I should say, from Different People? Where can folks, fans, friends, listeners find you guys?
Sorry? I'm just making sure.
Did we just get a sneak peek of
No. I just want to make sure I have the
right handles,
the Instagram handles right, because it'll all be on Instagram.
Nice.
And that on Instagram it's Different People NY. Mm-hmm. Right now we've only got 2 posts. We tried to keep things close to the vest pretty much until we were ready to put a song out. So any of the info will be there. I'm sure it'll be on Spotify and Apple Music and Tidal, whatever streaming apps, YouTube as well. You can check it all out there.
Fantastic. And of course, we'll have all the links and information in the description of this episode, so you're not going to have to go far. We'll have it all here for you. And that's just really cool to see. Good old Hudson Valley boy making something of himself with music and all that. And of course, also be following Young the Giant in that tour. And you said Lord Huron is later this year? Yeah,
Lord Huron is November, December. They're out direct support for Casey Musgraves.
Nice.
So that'll be another, I think we'll be down at Barclays Center, among other places. I think that's the closest one.
Gotcha. So, hey, if you want to say hi to Jesse, you got to check out any of these shows. I think this is fantastic. Unfortunately, Jesse, we do have to wrap up. I could sit here, talk music, shop, touring, sound, all that with you forever. But seriously, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in on this Town Square Spotlight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Absolutely.